Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm so excited to share a project that started with a tiny spark of inspiration and blossomed into something truly special, say handmade birthday cake pop-up card. It's a gift that I've poured my heart into, and I can't wait to walk you through the entire process. You know, sometimes the most wonderful creations begin with the simplest of moments. For me, this journey started with a fleeting glimpse of a tutorial screenshot. It was just a small image, but it held a certain magic, a promise of something delightful. That little spark ignited a creative fire, and before I knew it, I was on a mission to bring that digital inspiration into the tangible world, to craft a physical gift that I knew would be cherished. The foundation of any successful project, whether it's a grand architectural marvel or a delicate paper craft, lies in a solid plan. And that's precisely where I began. I took that initial screenshot, that humble digital seed, and brought it into Canva. This wasn't just about replicating an image. It was about deconstructing it, understanding its essence, and preparing to translate it into a three-dimensional form. Canva became my digital blueprint, my virtual drafting table. Within Canva, I meticulously mapped out the base of the card. This step is crucial, as it dictates the entire structure and how the pop-up mechanism will function. It's like laying the groundwork for a house. If the foundation isn't right, nothing else will stand strong. I focused on getting the dimensions absolutely perfect, ensuring that the proportions of the cake itself would harmonize beautifully with the natural fold of the paper. This careful planning ensures that when the card is opened, the cake doesn't just appear, it emerges with grace and a sense of delightful surprise. The beauty of this process lies in its iterative nature. You start with an idea, you sketch it out, you refine it, and you bring it to life. The screenshot was my initial guide, but Canva allowed me to experiment with scale and placement without wasting a single sheet of paper. I could zoom in, adjust lines, and visualize how each element would interact. It's this digital exploration that prevents potential pitfalls and ensures that when you move to the physical crafting stage, you're working with a clear and confident vision. Think about it. The fold of the card is the stage upon which our cake will perform its magic. If the cake is too wide, it might not fit within the confines of the card when closed. If it's too tall, it might obscure the greeting or other decorative elements. By carefully considering the card's fold within Canva, I was able to determine the ideal size and placement for the cake components. This foresight is what transforms a good idea into a truly polished and professional-looking handmade gift. This initial phase, the planning and digital mapping, might seem less glamorous than the actual cutting and gluing. But I assure you, it's where the magic truly begins to take shape. It's where you solve problems before they even arise, where you ensure that your vision can be realized with precision and beauty. The screenshot was the spark, but Canva was the crucible where that spark was shaped into a tangible plan. Once I had the foundational layout finalized in Canva, it was time to translate those digital lines into physical reality. This involved carefully transferring the dimensions and shapes onto cardstock. I chose a sturdy, high-quality cardstock for the base of the card, ensuring it would hold its shape and provide a stable platform for the pop-up elements. For the cake itself, I experimented with different colors and textures of paper to create visual interest and depth. The process of cutting out the individual pieces requires patience and a steady hand. For the main cake layers, I used a craft knife and a ruler to achieve clean, precise edges. This is where the accuracy of your measurements from the Canva stage really pays off. Each layer needs to fit together seamlessly, creating a cohesive and appealing cake structure. For the pop-up mechanism, I focused on creating a series of interlocking tabs and slots. This is the engineering behind the magic. The goal is to have the cake components spring forward when the card is opened, creating that delightful pop. I spent a considerable amount of time refining the angles and lengths of these tabs. Too short and the pop-up might be weak. Too long and it might not fold down neatly. It's a delicate balance, and it's achieved through careful measurement and a bit of trial and error. The tutorial screenshot provided a general idea of the pop-up structure, but adapting it to my specific card dimensions and desired cake height required some creative problem solving. I found that scoring the cardstock along the fold lines before cutting helped to create cleaner, more defined creases, which are essential for a smooth pop-up action. As I cut and assembled the individual cake layers, I began to see the vision come to life. The vibrant colors of the cardstock started to form a delicious-looking cake, and the intricate cuts for the pop-up mechanism hinted at the surprise that awaited. It's a deeply satisfying feeling to see something that existed only as lines on a screen begin to take on a physical form. The assembly of the pop-up mechanism itself is a fascinating puzzle. Each tab needs to connect with a corresponding slot in a way that allows for controlled movement. I used a strong adhesive, like double-sided tape or a good quality craft glue, to ensure that all the connections were secure. The key is to apply the adhesive precisely, avoiding any excess that might interfere with the folding action. One of the most rewarding aspects of this project is the ability to personalize it. While the basic structure is based on the tutorial, the decoration of the cake is entirely up to your imagination. I decided to create a multi-layered cake, with each layer a different color. This not only adds visual appeal, but also allows for more intricate pop-up elements. For the frosting, I used a slightly thicker cardstock in a contrasting color, cutting out wavy edges to mimic the look of piped frosting. I also added small circles of cardstock in various colors to represent sprinkles. These small details, while seemingly minor, contribute significantly to the overall charm and realism of the cake. The candles are another element that adds a festive touch. I cut out thin strips of yellow and orange cardstock to represent flames and attach them to small, brown candle shapes. The placement of these candles on the top layer of the cake is crucial for the overall composition. The beauty of handmade gifts is the personal touch they carry. This birthday cake pop-up card is more than just paper and glue. It's a tangible expression of care and affection. The process of creating it, from the initial spark of inspiration to the final decorative touches, is a journey of creativity and dedication. When you're working with intricate pop-up mechanisms, precision is paramount. I found that using a bone folder to crease the scored lines firmly before folding the card was incredibly helpful. This ensures that the folds are sharp and clean, which is essential for the pop-up to function smoothly. The tutorial screenshot gave me a great starting point for understanding the basic principles of pop-up card construction. However, adapting it to create a multi-layered cake required me to think about how each layer would interact with the others. I realized that the height of each layer needed to be carefully considered to ensure that they would all emerge from the card at the same time and at the correct angles. I experimented with different types of cuts for the pop-up elements. Some were simple V-shaped cuts, while others involved more complex interlocking tabs. The goal was to create a mechanism that was both visually appealing and structurally sound. It's a bit like solving a 3D puzzle, where each piece has a specific role to play in the overall movement. The choice of cardstock is also important. For the main cake layers, I used a smooth, matte cardstock that was easy to cut and glue. For the decorative elements, like the frosting and sprinkles, I used slightly textured cardstock to add visual interest. The contrast in textures can really elevate the finished product. The process of assembling the cake layers onto the pop-up mechanism is where the magic truly starts to unfold. I carefully adhered each layer to the designated tabs, ensuring that they were aligned correctly. It's important to work methodically, one layer at a time, to avoid any mistakes. The candles, of course, are the crowning glory of the cake. I decided to make them stand up slightly from the top layer, adding an extra dimension of realism. This involved creating small, folded bases for each candle that could be glued securely to the cake. The joy of creating something like this is in the details. Even the smallest elements, like the tiny circles representing sprinkles, contribute to the overall charm of the card. I spent time carefully placing each sprinkle to create a visually appealing pattern. The beauty of this project is that it's highly customizable. You can change the colors of the cake, the type of frosting, and the number of candles to suit the recipient's preferences. The basic pop-up mechanism can be adapted to create different cake designs, from a simple single-layer cake to a more elaborate tiered creation. The initial inspiration from that tutorial screenshot was a catalyst, but the real work involved understanding the mechanics of pop-up cards and applying that knowledge to create a unique design. It's a process that requires patience, precision, and a willingness to experiment. When you're cutting out the intricate pieces for the pop-up mechanism, a sharp craft knife and a cutting mat are essential tools. They allow for clean, precise cuts, which are crucial for the smooth operation of the pop-up. I also found that using a ruler as a guide for straight cuts was invaluable. The scoring of the cardstock is another critical step. Scoring creates a weakened line that allows the cardstock to fold cleanly and precisely. This is especially important for the tabs and slots that form the pop-up mechanism. I used a bone folder for scoring, which provides a firm, consistent line. The adhesive you choose is also important. I opted for a strong double-sided tape, as it provides a secure bond without adding bulk. Craft glue can also be used, but it's important to apply it sparingly to avoid any excess that might interfere with the folding. The process of assembling the cake layers onto the pop-up mechanism is a bit like building a miniature sculpture. Each layer needs to be attached at the correct angle and height to ensure that it pops up smoothly. When the card is opened, I found it helpful to test the pop-up mechanism at various stages of assembly to ensure that everything was working as intended. The decorative elements, such as the frosting and sprinkles, are where you can really let your creativity shine. I used different shades of cardstock to create a realistic frosting effect, and small circles of contrasting colors for the sprinkles. The placement of these elements is key to creating a visually appealing cake. The candles are the final touch that brings the cake to life. I cut out thin strips of yellow and orange cardstock to represent flames and attach them to small, brown candle shapes. The way the flames are cut and layered can create a sense of movement and realism. The beauty of this project lies in its ability to transform a simple piece of paper into a delightful surprise. The pop-up mechanism is the heart of the card, and it's the result of careful planning and precise execution. The tutorial screenshot provided the initial concept, but the actual creation involved a lot of problem-solving and adaptation. I found that using a template, even a hand-drawn one based on the screenshot, was incredibly helpful. It allowed me to ensure that all the pieces were the correct size and shape before I started cutting. This saved a lot of time and frustration. The assembly of the pop-up mechanism requires a delicate touch. You need to ensure that all the tabs and slots are aligned perfectly for the mechanism to work smoothly. I found that using tweezers to manipulate the small pieces was very helpful. The decorative elements are where you can really personalize the card. I chose bright, cheerful colors for the cake and frosting, and added a generous amount of sprinkles. The candles are a classic touch that adds to the festive feel of the card. The satisfaction of seeing the cake pop up perfectly when the card is opened is immense. It's a testament to the planning, the precision, and the creative effort that went into the project. This birthday cake pop-up card is a gift that is sure to bring a smile to anyone's face. The initial inspiration from that tutorial screenshot was a small seed, but with careful nurturing and a lot of hands-on work, it grew into this beautiful, tangible gift. It's a reminder that even the simplest of ideas can blossom into something truly extraordinary with a little bit of creativity and dedication. The process of creating this pop-up card is a journey of discovery. You learn about the mechanics of paper engineering, the importance of precision, and the joy of bringing a creative vision to life. The tutorial screenshot was the spark, but the execution was all about bringing that spark into the physical world. With care and attention to detail, the foundation of this project, as with any creative endeavor, is understanding the core principles. In this case, it was the mechanics of pop-up cards. The screenshot provided a visual cue, but delving into how those folds and cuts create movement was the real learning curve. Canva was instrumental in translating those abstract concepts into concrete dimensions and layouts. It allowed me to experiment with scale and proportion without wasting materials, ensuring that the final design would be both aesthetically pleasing and structurally sound. The transition from digital design to physical creation is always a critical juncture. Here, it involved meticulously transferring the planned dimensions onto cardstock. The choice of cardstock itself is a significant decision. For the base of the card, a robust, high-quality cardstock is essential to provide stability and support for the pop-up elements. For the cake itself, a variety of colors and textures can be employed to create visual depth and appeal. The precision required for cutting the individual cake layers, especially for the pop-up mechanism, cannot be overstated. A sharp craft knife and a steady hand are indispensable. The accuracy of the measurements derived from the Canva stage directly impacts the success of the pop-up's functionality. The engineering of the pop-up mechanism is where the true magic lies. This involves creating a series of interlocking tabs and slots that, when the card is opened, cause the cake to spring forward with a delightful surprise. This stage demands careful consideration of angles and lengths. Too short and the pop-up might lack impact. Too long, and it might hinder the card's ability to close neatly. Scoring the cardstock along the fold Lines before cutting is a technique that significantly enhances the crispness and definition of these folds, which are paramount for a smooth pop-up action. The tutorial screenshot offered a conceptual framework, but adapting it to achieve the desired cake height and fit within the card's dimensions required a degree of creative problem-solving and iterative refinement. The assembly of the cake. Layers onto the pop-up mechanism is akin to constructing a miniature, three-dimensional puzzle. Each layer must be attached at the precise angle and height to ensure that it emerges gracefully when the card is opened. Working methodically, one layer at a time, is crucial to avoid errors. The choice of adhesive is also a key consideration. A strong double-sided tape or a high-quality craft glue, applied sparingly, ensures a secure bond without adding unnecessary bulk that could impede the folding action. The decorative elements, such as the frosting and sprinkles, are where the personalization truly takes flight. Different shades of cardstock can be used to mimic the appearance of frosting, and small circles of contrasting colors can represent sprinkles, adding visual interest and charm. The candles, the crowning glory of the cake, can be crafted from thin strips of colored cardstock to represent flames, attached to small candle shapes. The careful placement and layering of these elements contribute significantly to the overall realism and festive appeal of the card. The satisfaction derived from witnessing the cake pop up perfectly upon opening the card is immense. It serves as a tangible testament to the meticulous planning, the unwavering precision, and the dedicated creative effort invested in the project. This birthday cake pop-up card transcends its material components. It is a heartfelt expression of care and affection, a gift designed to elicit joy and wonder. The initial inspiration, a mere spark from a tutorial screenshot, was nurtured and transformed through a process of thoughtful design, precise execution, and creative embellishment into this delightful, tangible gift. It stands as a beautiful reminder that even the most unassuming ideas can blossom into extraordinary creations with a blend of imagination, dedication, and a willingness to embrace the creative journey. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing in the creation of this special birthday cake pop-up card. I truly hope this project inspires you to explore your own creative passions and to craft something wonderful for the people you care about. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more crafting tutorials and creative projects, please consider following or subscribing. Your support means the world to me.